Welcome to the Resiliency of the Human Spirit podcast, where we share all about human triumphs for the collective's healing and empowerment. I am your host, Priscilla Hanley. My guest today is Laura Ponticello. Laura is a best-selling, award-winning author and highly rated motivational speaker with over 20 years of experience as a coach, publicist, and transformational leader. As a former corporate executive of a Fortune 500 company, Laura now shares her journey and strategies for success through her books, workshops, and motivational talks. Laura is also the founder of Divine Phoenix Publishing with a mission to create positive change. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Laura on right now. Hi, Laura.
Hi,
How's it going?
it's going really good because any opportunity to come together and share dialogue is a gift because I
Absolutely.
think in a world that's ever changing and evolving, for us to take a few moments and to speak from our heart and to share insight in whatever way that flows is always a gift.
Oh yes, we resonate together. We're on the same page. So before I get you to share your story, we actually agreed to do a very sacred and special tea ritual today for both of us and as well as for our audience so that we can radiate joy and high frequency vibrations from within us and radiate it out into the collective. So I will leave the floor to you now. I'll open the floor to you and let you lead this ritual.
Well, part of the intention is to encourage us to be present in this moment because the world around us can be so fast paced and busy. So, we're inviting people with a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. We're going to use tea in particular to
Okay.
create a sacred ritual. So, with that, the first step is you would select a mug or a cup. We both did that. Mine says
Yeah.
thankful on it. And then you would choose out a tea that speaks to you in that moment. There's no right or wrong way to do that. What I like to do is I tune in to my body and ask it what it might need. For today, I have cardamom and cinnamon, which tends to be somewhat nourishing and a little bit grounding. So, what you're going to do is you're going to select a cup, you're going to select the type of tea, and most important is you're going to set an intention. And intentions can range from anything for positive thoughts to what you want to experience in the moment. We're calling it a sacred cup of tea because it's the intention to be present, to create a ritual, and to expand out our sacredness into the world. So, with that, we've already pre boiled the tea. We've put our tea bag in, as you've seen. And the first thing is because we're multi-sensory people, so it's helpful to actually inhale the tea, to take a moment, to take a breath, and to breathe slowly, to open up that sense of being present in the moment. And we're going to slowly, with mindfulness, bring the tea to drink it. So we're going to sip, not gulp,
Okay.
slowly. We're going to taste that tea in our mouth and just take another moment to breathe. We're slowing down the pace of the day. We're becoming mindful. We're becoming present. And we're opening up our senses to allow our day to flow from a perfect frequency. We're now putting the cup down and we're taking a second to breathe into our heart. So we're just placing our attention. Both Priscilla and I did the exact same thing. We put our hand on our heart and we breathed into our heart. In this moment, we're letting go of all worries, all tension, and we're opening up our heart to become a vessel to receive love, to receive peace, and whatever intention that you originally set. For me, the intention was joy.
Mine was too.
And so, with that, we just took, if you think about it, that didn't take very long to recalibrate, align, and become present in the moment. And the reason why that's so important is because so many times we're running from place to place to place. So if you think about it, especially at the onset of the day when we tend to fix yourself that morning cup of coffee or tea, there's that opportunity to become present in that moment, to preset intentions. Also, because it's a different time of day for us where we just joined our energy forces to have that tea, we created a sacred pause, which is another time of day where we're slowing down, we're becoming mindful, and we're just recalibrating our energy with a cup of tea. So I encourage everyone just to try it. There's no right or wrong reason to do it.
I know it's so powerful. Thank you. Like you said, we're all rushing in this chaotic world. And, if we can just slow down with a cup of tea or coffee, that will help to recalibrate our whole energetic system and our beingness.
Oh, I love that word beingness. Because if you think about the concept of beingness, some people might interpret that stillness. For me, beingness is actually more of an active word because as we're being, I think we're also becoming the full essence of ourself. But the present moment gives us an opportunity to align, whether it's our energy zones, to kind of clear our mind and to open up our intuition into this state of being so we can move then through our day from a knowledge and insight perspective.
Yeah, and you also mentioned a pause during the day. Can you speak more about that?
Absolutely. So for me, I need reminders because a lot of times I'm moving from meeting to meeting. Or if you think about it, for those parents listening, we have a lot we have to do for our kids or our parents if we're dealing with elder care or just to get the task done, basically.
Yeah.
So what I do is I put a reminder on my cell phone. You can choose a time that speaks to you, but consistency is key. I tend to choose 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I need a little pick me up. And so my cell phone goes off and I block out 15 minutes on my cell phone. So from 3 to 3:15. And no matter what, I stop what I'm doing to create a sacred pause. Because if I don't take that time in that moment to realign myself, I'm moving through life from a fragmented or hurried state. I suppose the word fragmented isn't even the right word because I think we're all whole in every moment, but encouraging one to stop what they're doing, to pause for a few minutes, even if you can't have a cup of coffee or tea during that time. It can be herbal, by the way, for those of us that don't always want caffeine. You can also do this in nature.
Mm.
Nature is such a beautiful palette for us to create a sacred pause. So it's an opportunity to use the breath, to breathe in again, to put that hand back on the heart, and to realign our energy through the breath. If you're infusing with a cup of tea, you can sip your tea again slowly, mindfully, and use your senses. But I'm saying to you, you don't always need that cup of tea to do it. It's just encouraging you to take a sacred pause. And I'll tell you the number one reason to do this is it hydrates us. It literally says, I'm going to stop running from place to place in that mind of things I have to do. I'm going to quiet my mind so that I can move through the rest of my day with mindfulness, positivity, or just reflect in a few minutes.
Yeah, I like the word you said hydrate. I think it energetically hydrates us. right? Physically and energetically, if you're having a cup of tea.
Well, the concept of hydrate is an interesting thing because one of the good examples with hydration is first off, we have to have water to fuel our brain. And it doesn't necessarily have to be water, but it's literally nourishing ourselves from the inside out. So whether you're consuming water or using the concept of a sacred pause, you're caring enough about your mind, body, and spirit to say in that moment, I'm going to fill the cup instead of depleting the cup.
Mm,
I'm going to fill it to a perspective where it becomes almost overflowing because you've loved yourself enough to take that moment to hydrate yourself.
yeah. So how long have you been doing these rituals?
Well, many years ago, I went to a wellness center, and it was actually in the desert in Tucson. And it was my first experience into slowing down and becoming mindful. Like I had always been someone who had appreciated nature. I grew up being in sports. My mother and I used to garden together. But this concept that I learned about 24 years ago when I had the experience of going there and being introduced into mindfulness was becoming fully present and aware of your surroundings and, in essence, slowing the noise around you so that you could hear the whispers of your own heart. For
Yes.
me, I really took it to another level, not only starting, I would say more like small bites, small steps in my life. And I realized, especially in my corporate job, where it was one meeting after another, and that there needed to be an opportunity to recalibrate or rebalance myself. I wasn't at that point in time as spiritually kind of evolved that I needed to nourish my spirit. But I knew after coming back from the Tucson experience that I needed to hydrate my mind and my body. And then I realized what I'll call the triple three, the mind, body, and spirit. Boy, if they're in harmony, we're flowing, we're vibing to an even better vibe.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I agree. So I want to move to your book. This is your latest book, right? Thank you
Yes.
so much for sending this to me. I read it and I totally enjoyed it. It was such a pleasant, easy read, and it felt like you were talking to me, very conversational. I like that. So I just want to ask you, how did your journey of being an author start for you?
Well, my first experience was writing my first book, which was called Live the Life of Your Dreams, 33 Tips for Inspired Living. And that was really a series of what I'll call like aha moments or tidbits. And so I had journals, notebooks, even like scraps of paper that I would just sort of leave in a central space. And finally, in the creative arts, that we'll call it someone's knocking on your door, but there was a part of me that couldn't get it out of my head that I was meant to write something. And my corporate job was in human resources and in executive coaching. So I had been writing leadership articles,
Mm.
but I realized because of my own experience, where in essence I negated to hydrate myself and my type A just kept charging along, as an achiever. And you don't realize that sometimes, like drip by drip, right? We can either forego that self-care and we push ourselves to the brink of exhaustion. So I recognize that this concept of live the life of your dreams at that time, I personally, and a lot of like the working women that I knew, only had short bites of time. And so I
Mm.
thought, oh, if I wrote a conversational book where they could open it up for a little nougat of wisdom at any page, that would probably be good. And that book percolated for like 7 years.
Oh,
And
no
it's,
way.
and I don't know why, but I guess life, and I was evolving and I was growing. So I wrote that book from a conversational style. Fast forward now, 5 books later, to the Awaken to Your Amazing Potential, which is really, I wrote it again in a style like two friends taking a walk together or sitting down and having a cup of tea and a conversation.
Yep.
And I wrote it also from a perspective of an invitation so that the reader can start opening up more of a journey of self discovery for them and take nuggets or sound bites or bits of daily practices that they could walk away with and start incorporating in their life.
So this book was written in 2023, right? How did this book come about for you?
Well, it's interesting. The woman, myself, who started the book, writers are such an interesting breed because when we start a book, by the time we're done with the book, it's kind of like birthing a baby. We've changed. We have
Mm,
metaphoric, so to speak, experience. So for me, I had written a book in between, which was an international award winner called The Art of Self Transformation. And that book was really my own personal journey of self discovery of how did I tap into the triple three, the mind, body, and spirit, and start living my life from that frequency and that guidance. So I went back to that book and I thought, oh, I can expand on some of these concepts and I can retool that book in a different way. The Art of Self Transformation was written a tad as sort of a series of essays that I had written to myself. And I thought I can take some of that content, but I had changed. I
mm,
had expanded and grown. I mean, if you think about the pandemic impact on all of us, what happened? We went more internal.
right.
And so when you go more internal, what are those whispers? What are those words you're hearing in your own heart and in your own mind? And I really, as part of the art of self transformation, wanted someone to just explore the concept of rebirth or transformation and awaken to your amazing potential. I really wanted someone who wants to go on the journey to tap in to not only their personal power, but to live the most incredible life in a way that makes sense for them.
Wonderful. And you mentioned self-discovery a couple times. So I want to ask you, what advice would you give to somebody who is afraid to go on the journey of self-discovery because they're afraid of what they're going to find there?
Well, I actually hear that from people like, what gave you the courage? And it wasn't necessarily courage that's required to go on a journey of self discovery, even though you will find resilience and courage along the way. It's the concept of what if you don't do that? So, in other words, expansion and growth is going to show up at our doorstep through a lot of different ways. We can open that door, or that door somehow will arrive for us through life's occurrences. So, if you think about a doorway, you just have to open the door a little bit. And if you can have that impetus or that desire to say, it takes one step to look into a different doorway. And so, because we're these beautiful, incredible beings and multidimensional, we have so much potential inside of us. And the first step is slowing down enough to hear ourselves breathing. Because when we're running and we're going and we're doing, self-discovery is not maybe at the level that it could be. Not that there's any perfect approach to self-discovery. Another really great thing was, if you have intimidation to do that, get out in nature. When you're in nature, if you think about it, you kind of become so present in the moment. Like for me as a gardener, I lose all sense of time, space. I become one with the flowers. And in a way, that's self discovery. because I'm letting go of everything my mind's telling me to do, and I'm just immersing myself in Mother Gaia or nature. So, to summarize it, all you have to do is say yes. Yes, I want to open up a path. I want to grow. And I'm just reminding you that within you is already this bright, bold light. It's like plugging in a lamp. That's all we're asking you to do is to turn on that light switch or plug in the lamp and know that you are supported no matter what.
Yeah, that's so powerful. There's a lot of talk these days about self-empowerment. What does self-empowerment mean to you?
Well, that is a wonderful question. So, self empowerment for me is living from a frequency of love. So, self empowerment, if you had an equation, it would equal self love. And
Mm,
in other words, we're loving ourselves enough that we're permitting ourselves to live our life from an empowered standpoint. And what happens is that old narratives that aren't our fault, they are either wounds or childhood experiences or potential traumas in our life, have caused us to replay a narrative that's not really authentically our truth. We are all worthy of love. So self empowerment is that inner knowledge that not only are we worthy of love, the most powerful gift we can give ourselves and the world is saying yes to spirit coming through us in essence. And I say that because all of us are love. So self empowerment equals self love because we were birthed to be loved.
mhm,
We are love. And the more we can say to ourselves, I am worthy of love, the more empowered we are, passionate about our purpose, and the universe just starts lining up a lot of miracles. But I understand that road of self empowerment equals self love takes time. And some people would say, well, what really even is self love? I think they walk hand in hand on the journey. And I think it's really self worthiness of saying, I am so powerful that I am this loving being because I come from God, a creation center, source energy. And if I was created at that frequency, I must be empowered.
mhm. I like that. It's really unfortunate because we as kids, everybody as children growing up, we've been programmed at some point with self-limiting beliefs. So, what would you say to parents, or what advice would you give to parents who are unconsciously programming their kids with self-limiting beliefs? I mean, it's just like a family pattern repeating themselves, right, over and over through the generations. How do we break that cycle?
Well, I think that behavior occurs all the time. It's not only as children, it's even in our adult life. And so part of that is really self-awareness. And we mirror behaviors, right? We either say, oh, I don't want to be like my parent. I don't want to experience this trauma, this abuse, this negativity. It takes resilience and courage to course correct, to sing a different song. And so if you're a parent and you may be modeling a behavior that you've only learned as a child, not fully aware that this may not be a healthy behavior, we have to allow the children to self express. So self-expression, whether, there's a full spectrum of emotions that we will feel. We will feel anger, we will feel joy, we will feel disappointment, grief, sadness, betrayal. It's a full spectrum. But we have to permit children to express themselves. And so, like, one of the tools that I've seen is art. Art is a great way for young people to self express. For me, I was always drawn to have a journal.
Mm.
And my journal was my best friend because I could write anything in there and it was uncensored. So when you think of different age groups of young people, we have to give them a pathway to be authentically them. And self expression, art can be one way. The other is uplifting, like music. The power of music is a whole nother vibrational tool. If you think about it, how children sort of start moving back and forth when they hear music. So even if a parent is sad, or because, we're dealt a lot in life, and somehow we may want to be the best mom or dad for our kids, but we may be having a really rough day. And that child, especially empaths, they know that their mom or dad is not themselves. So that mom or dad is not going to necessarily say, "Oh my God, let's blast, a tune." But we have to be able to provide something. Maybe it's in that child's room where there's like an art book where they could color. Maybe it's, some children have imaginary friends. Those of us in the spiritual community say those weren't imaginary friends. Those were like the angelic realm talking to
Right.
us all the time. We
Yep.
weren't crazy. We just didn't know what that meant. And I also think the schools, like the education system, that's evolving too. I've had many beautiful experiences with teachers, but those teachers have encouraged me to foster exploration. And so when I was young, I did use art. I did, explore with piano. I was not
Mhm.
good at that. But sports are another vehicle for young people also. Or like community centers have amazing activities because a child needs to know, even if their parent is struggling, that they can find love and support in some kind of way.
Mhm. Wonderful. I'm going back to your book again. I want to read this paragraph that really jumped out at me because I'll just read it and then we'll talk about it, okay?
Okay. Oh, I
So,
love this.
so taking my own advice, I leave a box of chocolates in the mailbox for Dan the mailman with a line on the top stating, I am grateful. Placing the box of chocolates inside the mailbox and writing the words of gratitude immediately shifts my narrative. Instead of feeling residual angst when opening the mailbox, expecting a bill or my old storyline, replaying that awful news arrives in the mail due to the past with divorce paperwork, I envision angels bringing forth good tidings. Telling the universe I am grateful raises my vibrational frequency. I love this paragraph so much. It jumped out at me. I would love it if you talked about how we can shift our mindset, right? I want to say, our earlier call, you mentioned about the rock and the butterfly and putting it in the mailbox. I would so love for you to share that story because it's such a powerful story.
Well, if you think about the power of our mind, it's that narrative voice of, in essence, what are we replaying to ourselves? What are we recanting? And the first thing is, many times we're not even aware of those songs we're singing to ourselves. And they could be really negative, or they could be somewhat positive or euphoric and self affirming. However, there's unexpected things that happen in our life. So even though I had talked earlier about the concept of mindfulness, becoming more present, my own self awareness, and the power of the three, the mind, body, spirit, there's still those feelings in the heart at times of unsettledness, anxiety, anxiousness, or darn disappointment. So in this case, I had gone through a divorce, and it really hit me hard. And I think the human heart, it's not something that we just, say, "Oh, I'd like to feel better today." We have to feel the pain, But in feeling the pain, we also have to remind ourselves of the power of our worthiness of love and loving ourselves. So I started noticing that I was becoming anxious when I was walking to the mailbox. And even though I had mastered what I considered that self-talk narrative of I am healthy, I am vibrant, I am happy, I am joyful, I just felt anxious walking to the mailbox. And I noticed this over, let's say, like a few week period, so much that my body was reacting to this. Like I was holding my breath. So I came in and I was like, what's wrong with me? Because that's the first thing we do is we say, like, what's wrong with ourselves? And that's an ego-based thought.
Mm,
I said to myself in from that gentler space, is there an opportunity here that I could look at? Why am I anxious? And then it was that aha moment when I started sitting down. I breathed for a few minutes and I took out a pen and I wrote, I am anxious because I am feeling this. How could I shift? And all of a sudden, I looked out the sunroom where I was sitting writing in the journal, and the farm field was behind me, and my eye literally went to a rock. And I said to myself, wow, like it was like that spirit of curiosity, like,
mhm.
I wonder what that means. But instead of just sitting there pondering it, I opened the sunroom door and I walked out and I saw like all these different rocks. I mean, some of them were quite large, but that power within myself said, pick one up now. So I walked back, I held the rock, and I intuitively walked, instead of coming in the house, around the house towards the mailbox. And it was kind of like a bewildering moment because I was like, oh my God, I think I'm supposed to put the rock in the mailbox for some reason. So I did it. And it was an interesting experience because I started walking back to the house. I closed the mailbox. And the next feeling came was from teaching a workshop. I thought, I think I have all these like creative stickers in this box in the garage. And we used them as writing prompts where we would create like one line around, you would pick a sticker, etc. So I went and I found the box, I opened the sticker, and I found a butterfly sticker. And it hit my heart in that moment because that symbol of the butterfly stood for me evolution and clear
Mhm.
transformation,
Yeah.
right? It's what did I need to do in that moment to spread my own butterfly wings? So I walked back to the mailbox and I put the butterfly sticker on the rock. I left it in there, but the very next day when I went to check the mail, I had a new excitement. I had shifted the narrative within myself of saying, I'm anxious. I'm expecting something negative to show up in the mail. That simple act of finding something from nature, a rock, putting a sticker on it, I then introduced the concept of gratitude, which gratitude's a total game changer. It not only raises our vibration, just the simple act of thank you, I am grateful. Like for me, that calms my whole body. So I started slowly with that mindfulness, walking to the mailbox saying, thank you, I am grateful. Dan was the mailman. I am grateful for you bringing mail. Angels, I am grateful for you bringing good news. I am grateful for the sun. Now, we can say this was a one-time wonder. It takes multiple days for the mind to adjust to new behaviors. If you think about it, if you're a runner or you work out or you perform any task, you have to practice at that task. It's the same thing with the power of the mind and what we're affirming to ourselves. So I made a conscious choice that I would do this at onset, no matter what, for 8 days. And I found each day became more natural. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take the rock out of the mailbox because I needed that visual, but in my subconscious now, I had given myself an energetic upgrade. And then I practiced saying, okay, I'm grateful without having the rock. Now, if you think about it, say you're going to Starbucks or a fast food restaurant, or you're doing something, because I realize, maybe people have PO boxes, maybe it's a different experience, but any task we do on a consistent basis, we can attune the narrative we're saying to ourselves, and we can find that spirit of gratitude in what we're doing. And so it's interesting you were drawn to that. That was a very, very powerful experience that
Yes.
I think changed me and made me much more appreciative of my own life.
Do you think it was spirit talking to you? Coming
Definitely.
through? Yeah.
Well, I think just seeing the rock, I could have looked at anything in the
Right.
backyard, but I think the other part is we tend to second guess ourselves a lot, especially our intuitive nudges or our feelings. But in this case, I almost couldn't get to that rock soon enough. It was
Mm.
literally like I had to pick up that rock. And I think by allowing spirit and the angel team to guide me, they then took me to the next step, right? It's like one step leads to another step, which leads to another step, which leads to another step. And I guess that's the beauty of life.
So then what happened next? Like when you shifted this mindset and this energy within you, energy of anxiousness, how did the whole thing play out for you then?
Well, the first thing that I noticed is I started looking at my business. And I started saying, am I living from a space of pure gratitude with the clients I'm working with, the type of work that I'm doing? And do I feel joyful? It actually caused me kind of like a teeter-totter effect. So sort of like I was in the middle, my mind, body, spirit, and my concept of mindfulness was there. But now that I had opened up the path to gratitude, joy now wanted to knock at my door.
Hmm. Interesting.
And I realized that there was some work that I was doing in the world that I was doing out of necessity, like to earn money, quite candidly. And it wasn't really bringing me joy, and I wasn't fully grateful for it. I was grateful for the flow of abundance to pay bills out of necessity. But when I permitted myself to explore, so that self awareness, self exploration, and what I did is I got a piece of paper out and I started a gratitude journal. So that was the next thing. But part of that gratitude journal was saying, okay, I'm grateful. And what can happen is you just start saying, oh, I'm grateful for the snow, I'm grateful for the sun. And then it becomes like a task list of trying to
Mm.
find things that I'm grateful for instead of leaning back into the breath, leaning into the heart again, breathing, and really feeling gratitude from the heart. And I started feeling much more joyful. The
Wow.
more that I was grateful, and then I started saying to myself, like in the publishing company, initially I worked with a lot of memoirs, which were, really triumphant stories of people overcoming great hardships. But I wanted to start also exploring more self transformation, even though those stories are very transformative. I started leaning a little bit more towards, could I write from a different frequency? Could I draw forth clients from a different frequency? And once you shift your own narrative and give yourself an upgrade, the world around you will complement that unless you resist it.
Yeah. From my spiritual studies, what I'm learning is that, okay, the 3D paradigm, which, we're currently still kind of in, it's all about structure, competition, go, 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 achieve kind of thing, right? So with the frequency of Mother Earth that's shifting right now, and we're kind of like going into a higher vibrational way of living, I can feel for myself like my life is now not so much structure anymore. It's more let's go with the flow and see what happens. And that can be scary sometimes, right?
Mm.
So it's especially for people who are business owners. I am a new business owner and I didn't think I was going to do a podcast ever, but here I am talking to you on a podcast. So it's the main thing now, I think, is us being able to let go and trust ourselves and our guides in the universe to guide us to where we need to be. But the part about letting go and trusting, it's so difficult. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have total chills, which is always my affirmation that this is an area for us to explore further because our limited beliefs say that we have to fit into a box, a certain way of doing things based on past behavior. And so for me, as like a type A persona who likes task lists and things to achieve for higher consciousness still, is that concept of surrender was not easy, but boy, did life cause me to surrender. When you go through, whether it's a divorce or sickness or a job change, that fear rises of uncertainty. And so the more we can affirm back to the self through self-talk, through nurturing and self-care, the more our ego doesn't derail us. In essence, the ego becomes more integrated, more loving, and we learn that we can no longer control the finite details of our life. I think the pandemic really changed, if you think about it, how we're working hybrid, how we're connecting, and
Hmm.
also where do we want to place our own energy from our time and choices. But change is scary. Okay. There's no way I can say that it's not. And so that loving, compassionate voice within ourselves, like one of the affirmations that I do is I say, I am supported, I am guided, I am in the flow of life. Allow me to step forward with trust and to surrender the outcome. And I have to say that. And then if my mind's still like, woo, that's great, but how does that work?
Exactly.
I get myself out in nature. I shift the energy. I get myself out in nature, or I write through it. I say, okay, it's like that door concept we were talking about where you open the door a little bit. You step through that door of fear to know that you are completely trusted. And my new way of being is very much like what you're talking about is I tune in each day to say, am I supposed to be placing my attention on this? Even though the night before I've made a short list of where my attention is going to go that day. And it's that gentleness too, because you know, we're conscious beings, and you're right, as our energy is expanding, we need our bodies, believe it or not, more time to rest. It's like a dichotomy, right? It's like for the light workers and those of us, which are all of us, okay, who are light beings here, who are whole and are worthy of love, we're processing new energies, new modalities. Our energy is expanding and shifting. And just like that butterfly that went through that metamorphosis period, it needed to grow its wings. We've got to rest. We've got to hydrate and rest. Otherwise, how are we going to process all this energy
Yeah.
and have visual reminders? So like for me, I have this crystal butterfly
Oh, lovely.
on my desk,
What kind
which
of crystal is that?
it's selenite and it has a
Oh,
little bit of I would say citrine in it.
oh,
It's
right. Okay.
very kind of subtle, but I needed a visual reminder that who I am and my work is about transformation. And I do use crystals. I mean, I think we need a toolkit of stuff. There's not one or two things. So I have lavender essential oil, I have
Mm,
frankincense essential oil, I have plants around me. I need those reminders to say, wow, life exists beyond just being so driven to do things and whatnot. How about you? What are some of the things you're doing? Because we can
You
learn so
know,
much from you.
there was a day where I was feeling really overwhelmed when I first started my business because I had no clue like how to do things and network and all that stuff. So I was feeling really heavy inside, and so I went into meditation because I do meditation a lot, like twice a day. And so I told my higher self and my guides and whoever was listening. And I said, I am feeling really troubled right now because I took the leap of faith in leaving my job because my job was not resonating with me anymore. So I took the leap of faith, but now I feel so lost and I'm scared. And I said, my human perspective is so limited that I can only focus on what's in front of me, right? Like all the other stuff that's outside of my purview, I can't focus on anything outside of my purview. So I said, I make a deal with you, universe. I am going to focus on what brings me joy every day, what's in front of me and what brings me joy. I said, that's all I can do. And I said, the other big stuff, like how to make this whole business thing work. And I said, I'm going to leave it to you because it's really overwhelming. And so I think that was my way of surrendering. And after I did that, I felt somewhat calm. And now I'm just constantly reminding myself I just need to focus on what's in front of me and what brings me joy. And here we are today doing a podcast, right?
Well, I want to honor you for trusting yourself, but also a very key thing that you said that I think we can all learn from is you asked for help. You asked your higher self and your angel team, your guides. We all have different backgrounds that we come from in terms of spirituality or not, but we have a support team out there.
We do.
Our team is here to help us, and when we need help, that's all we have to ask for. And I'm so glad you talked about meditation. I used to It's kind of like, it was funny. At first, with the essential oils, I was constantly inhaling lavender to calm myself down.
I love lavender.
In my corporate job, especially, I always had like a secret drawer of like frankincense for enlightenment, lavender. And this was like, let's say, 24 years ago. So now I love lavender too, but that innate woman who was pulling out her drawer when no one was looking, putting it on before business meetings, which I still do now, and just slowly inhale. I now, and oh my God, did you lead us into this moment? I now saying, Angel team, we got this. Like, like we're all a team.
Oh, yeah.
And meditation, right? Tapping in through that third eye or whatever technique that someone uses. Yoga can be another form of meditation, but the enlightened self, that's where we come into that harmonized, centered perspective where we can follow the guidance. And even if we have fear, we can surrender that. And for me, just because of how I was raised, there's the power of prayer. There weren't enough candles that we could light to help our family at times,
Yeah.
but that light is also within us, right? And that light outside in our subtle bodies, in our higher self, in our expanded self, is where we're illuminating a lot more light. And you talked about the earth and Mother Gaia before. She's evolving to support us.
Yes.
And the more we care and love her too, the more we're going to be supported as well.
Yes, I love that. So I want to shift now to your business. Apart from writing books, do you have any programs or services that you offer to the collective?
I do. So probably in three key areas. One, I'm a publicist, and I've been doing that for many, many years. Where, for example, you have a message that you want to bring out to the world. So how do you create a narrative for that? How do you define that? how do you then amplify that to get your brand, your book, your business out? That would be under my coaching arena.
Right.
So
Okay.
I actually do publicist engagements. That's probably a smaller portion of my time right now. The coaching ranges from awaken to your amazing potential, daily habits and tips to break through limited beliefs, to actually how do you awaken your book concept? How do you create, from narrative start to finish and market it to the world? So I do those through workshops. So it's
Oh,
the
nice.
coaching, the publicist work, and the workshops are everything from creative incubator spaces. Because when the collective comes together, that's when the magic happens. Not in our own silo. We can
Mm.
create, but as human beings, we need that support and for other people to give us perspectives. So I really love that aspect a lot, not only when I go out and do my book signings, but bringing all different walks of life together in master classes to empower and uplift each other and to say your story matters and your voice. How do we? Because one of the common things that I hear is, well, I've been wanting to tell this story. How do I do it? How do I write this book? How do I even start? And then for people who work with me who have, let's say, gotten to that level of 3, 4 books or on that New York Times level, how do you then connect back in with the people so it's feeling joyful, purposeful for you?
Right. And I understand you have a special gift for the audience today.
I do. So I wanted to, because we had shared the cup of tea, and really the key is mindfulness and the power of intention. If anyone's interested, I have a PDF electronic offering for you. You just could email me at lauraponticello@icloud.com. Also on my website is a free audio sample of the Live the Life of Your Dreams book. And upcoming, I'll be also doing workshops because I know that we all need some support. So those are the two key offerings right now.
Thank you so much for your free gifts. I'll definitely put those in the show notes. So I want to ask you, do you see yourself writing another book
Oh,
shortly?
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Because the awaken to your amazing potential is an evolution for me. It's a jump off. So retreats are going to be starting, which I'm super excited about, and a master class specifically on that concept of
Oh, nice.
resilience and how do you awaken that potential within yourself. But the next book is really going to be focused on how do you restore, renew, and reconnect with you.
Oh, wow, I like that. Yeah, reconnecting with ourselves because that's so important because we carry all the wisdom within us. You know, like I said, the 3D paradigm, we were always giving our power away to, whoever, right? The external forces. But I think with the higher vibrational living, it's all coming back to center within yourself. And you're doing such profound work to help the collective to get there, right? Going back within.
Well, I think we all are in whatever way, because if you think about it, even going to the grocery store, even getting gas, we have the power of kindness, of smiling at someone, in our business lives, of connecting with clients. Look at what you're doing with your podcast and holding space for transformational stories. Is we all have that power within ourselves to make a conscious choice to be love in every moment, and in by being love to honor ourselves by permitting ourselves to feel joy too. It's like that self transformation, self love, and joy. They're all there. So I would say be gentle with yourself, hydrate yourself, and know that in our upgraded expansion, you're supported. We have great things ahead, even through the turbulent times. So we
Yeah.
have to lean into that knowledge that lives within us. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.
And how can people find you online?
They can go to lauraponticello.com. I'm also on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, but that's the best way to connect with me. And I love getting feedback or connecting. Also, all my books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I just released on in Apple for any Apple users the ebook
Oh,
for the
nice.
current book. So
Okay. I'll definitely put all your links, the Amazon links. And, if you want to give me the Apple link, I can put it in the
sure.
show notes as well. And so we have a couple minutes left. So I have a signature closing question that I
Oh,
ask
you
all my
do?
guests.
Fun. It's
Okay.
like a magic box that you're pulling from.
So you ready? I'm going to ask you the
I'm
question.
ready.
Okay. What is your closing message for humanity to help in our collective healing and empowerment?
Wow. I'm breathing into my heart on that one because I want to ensure that that's coming from a space of divine resonance. I think as the collective is evolving, the concept of community is more important than ever. And in that concept of community, there is a collective consciousness because we all bring different perspectives, but we are not a silo at this point in time. Instead, we have the ability to not only support and uplift each other. So I would say seek out communities. There not only is online, but we need to find some level of resonance with our way of thinking from a frequency that is true not only to our nature, but that expands. If you think about when many people come with light into a dark space, what does it do? It illuminates more light. And we are not focusing necessarily on the darkness, but there is density in the world. And as we are upgrading and expanding, we have the ability to ignite multiple layers of light within our families, within our communities. But the clear message is to seek community connections. It is so powerful during this time. And many angels have, I suppose, walked, or angelic beings, but it's that interharmony on the human plane for us to be around other human connections. Like we've incarnated to have human connections and loving experiences. And I think that is, I don't want to say our secret weapon, but that's what will keep the mothership, so to speak, going forward. Community.
Absolutely. It's time for community right now. Thank you so much for that profound message.
You for holding space because you were the one by your expanded self that asked that question, and I had to breathe into that question. And that was powerful for me as a reminder. Community.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for being here today. I so enjoyed this conversation. And I would love to have you back when you write your next book. Let's come back.
And by then, I'll get to see all the journey that you've been on,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
it's going to be amazing. Thank you so much for
I
your
hope
time
so.
today.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, I know it is. It's if it's a current reality.
For everybody who's watching and listening, thank you for your time. And until next time, bye for now.
Bye, everybody.